Ladies and gentlemen, we are with the Windy City Thunderbolts decision maker. I could say it right like that, right, guys?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that works.
I'm with the assistant GM, Bill Waliewski, and also with the manager, Brian Smith. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing well. Thanks for having us, Dave.
It's my pleasure. I wanted to touch base just before the season because there's a lot to talk about. So I think we have 3 hours in front of us of conversation. Is that right?
Sure. As much time as you need.
So, Bill, what is the state of the franchise right now? Because you've been there for since, well, not you, but a franchise since 1999, one of the oldest franchise in Frontier League history. And you've been there for the last 7 seasons. You were one of the founder of the Joliet Slammers. What's the state of the franchise right now with what's happening and with the fact that you've been there for quite a while?
Yeah, it's amazing how quick it goes. It seems kind of like yesterday. 2015 was my first year, but we in 2019 we celebrated our 20th anniversary, and it was a great celebration. And so that the franchise has never been stronger than we are now. We've got a great ballpark. We've made improvements over the years. In many ways, and we have a really good partnership with the Village of Crestwood, who owns the ballpark. So we're in really great shape, and just like everybody else, we got COVID threw us for a loop, losing our season last year, but we're more than excited to start it to get the season rolling in roughly 30 days.
Okay, I'm always amazed that independent league baseball teams can survive not playing for 1 year. What kind of support has been given by the ownership?
Well, it's a great point, and I'm pleasantly surprised. I thought there would be more attrition, frankly, after so many teams not being able to play, and everybody did it differently, right? Mm-hmm. You had some teams that started their own league, as an example. You mentioned Joliet; they did that. Our bailiwick last year was renting out our facility for amateur baseball. We're in a really good location for that. There was a pent up demand because the state was shut down. I don't think baseball was at least supposed to happen until June 26th. So kind of a crazy statistic. Last year, we played in this ballpark 362 games. And in 362 games from June 26th up until it was right around the end of October. Weekends were packed. We'd have 8 games in a day, and so that's how we survived, frankly. And we rolled the dice a little bit, figuring there would be that demand, and there was, and it as I called it at the time, we got to build a bridge to 2021, and that helped us do that.
Okay. What I'm interested about is I'm talking to pretty much all the teams right now for the Frontier League Journal, and as I was expecting, you all have your way of doing things, your chain of commands in a way, the way you interact with each other. And I was wondering, we were not able to have Mike, the general manager, today on the conversation. But what is how do you choose your players? Is there one person that's really in charge of it, or is that kind of a group decision making?
Well, we do, yeah. Everybody does it differently, and I'm going to segue to Brian. This is a great question for him. So the way we do it is our manager is in charge of baseball operations. We do have a lot of dialogue with Brian during the course of the year and the off season, but I'll leave it to him to tell you about the method to his madness.
Brian?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I know a lot of guys in the league who do work with their GMs, or their GMs work with them on who's going to be coming in, but having control of the roster is very comforting. At the end of the day that the product on the field is a result of your work, not somebody else's. So if you have a great season, you have something to ride high about. And if you have, not that much success, you have something to look at and kind of see how you can improve moving forward, things that work, things that didn't work, and not have to go to somebody else and say, why did this happen? I have complete control of the winning and the losing based on the players on the field. And it's difficult, but again, these guys get information every day through email and people calling the office. And there's a lot of contact from other scouts that reach out to the office, because this is still my second year on the field. It'll be my third year back with the organization as manager, but still new to this setup. And it's been encouraging over the last 3 years to know that I have guys that back me on the success of the team and of the players that we bring in.
I've always wondered why, how is it when you're a pitching coach, you were a pitching coach, right, before,
right,
and then you become manager. Is it easy to let go because you can see something, but then you have so many things to care about? So is it easy to let go and just have somebody just delegating some responsibilities for the pitching staff?
Yeah, and it was actually more than comforting in 2019 having a former player of mine with Windy City be my pitching coach, because he knew what got me going. He knew what I liked out of players because he played for me. So what I expected out of them, he took what he and I worked with for 2 years as a player-coach relationship, and he brought it to the pitching staff, knowing that, I personally was not a guy who dominated with overpowering velocity, but I dominated with command. And I expect guys that we bring in to be in the strike zone. And I don't care if it's 84 or 94. It's just part of the game that I respected, and I was respected from opposing teams as a guy who challenged hitters and wasn't afraid to throw strikes. And sometimes you can look at a player and see that he is afraid to do that. And sometimes you can see the guys that have less stuff have extreme confidence because they are committed to what they're doing. And knowing that I had a guy on staff who had worked with me before, it was an easy transition for me to let go of the pitching staff, for us to talk every morning about what the plan is for the day, and then go about it for the rest of the night.
That's interesting, because I had an interview with Chase Cunningham, and he was with your team before, and he had this exact thing to say, that it all changed for him when he stopped fearing hitters, that he was in command. So that's their job to beat you and not you to beat them, in a way. You know what I mean? You just have to deal with what I'm giving you.
And at the end of the day, hitting is much harder than throwing strikes.
Yeah.
So if you have command of the strike zone, you're going to have a lot of success, whether it's in our league or other leagues. You're going to have a lot of success. You could have less stuff and have success. And there are plenty of guys who are proof of that.
It's also interesting that you're saying that you rely on this approach, because in 2019 you were middle of the pack in pretty much everything when it came to pitching, but for the offense you were, I think, dead last or second to last. Was there a special emphasis on that during this big off season that we had?
Yeah, the big off season that lasted 22 months. And again, the roster changed a ton from what was going to be here in 2020 to now. And the way the roster is constructed, and it's different for everybody, but everybody has their style. But sometimes players that are available don't fit your style.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think of it, in my eyes, like they do in the NFL draft. Sometimes you just have to take the best player available, regardless of position, to put the best product on the field that you think you can win with. And with a lot of teams having turf, defense, as you can see, the percentages are extremely high, because anybody can play everywhere now. And that's kind of the athlete that's being developed through high school and college, are these Chris Bryant type players that are third baseman, but they can play center field and right if you need them. And guys that are multi-facet can help a team more often than the guy who is stuck at first base. And, I personally like the guy that I can move around, the guy who's versatile. So I know that I can have a little flexibility offensively to put the best 9 we can every night in the lineup. And in 2019, it was difficult. I'm not going to lie about it. We had guys that we expected more out of, hoping for the back of the baseball card to turn around by the end of the season, and it didn't work out that way. So changes were made earlier than expected. And then we were kind of hoping for the best and trying to find those guys that could come in and have some sort of success. and we had guys that showed promise, and it was good to see. And at the end of the day, the right guys in the clubhouse were there. Unfortunately, the numbers didn't prove it at the end of the day.
I was surprised at the approach at the draft. I thought that the Thunderbolts would be much more active than that, and maybe focus more on the offensive side. You went with a middle of the pack guy. I mean, middle of the field guy. What was your approach? What were you thinking, and why not do something else?
It's crazy how you go through looking for guys to fill your roster to start spring training. And I've had talks with managers in the league because I'm looking for more middle infield depth, knowing that those guys are the most versatile and they're the guys that are most willing to play center field, play left field, play right field. And if they are on base machines, if they have histories of getting on base and being a little bit more athletic than a single dimensional guy, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with those guys trying to, maneuver them into the opening day plan. And having a middle infielder that I had guys on the team, and Kevin Santiago, our hitting coach, had a history with him, to know that his personality is right on track, the way he goes about his business is right on track, and now we just need to get that untapped potential out of him because he was an affiliated ball for a reason. There are skills there. We just need to get him out of him as soon as possible.
Okay, just to involve Bill a little in the conversation, you were talking about improvements to the stadium, and I want to talk to you both about this because you have I'll say a special stadium or weird stadium where there's one part of the stand that is kind of non-existing. How do you figure that why was that? Why was that made like that?
Well, my understanding was that, so just to kind of give a little better description, our stadium on the third base side has an upper deck, which is very unusual at our level of baseball. And it's a true upper deck, as you see in old baseball stadium. My understanding is that we have power lines outside of our ballpark, and we couldn't build on the first base side. We couldn't build up on the first base side. So it's very unique, and it's memorable, and it's quirky, and it's cool. We have the smallest ballpark in the league, and it's really intimate facility. You're right up close to the action, no matter where you're at. Even in the upper deck, you feel like you're looking down, hanging over the field. So it's a quirky design. It's the first thing people notice. I think it looks almost like they ran out of money or something. They built the upper deck on the one side, and then it's like, whoa, wait, we don't have the cash for this. But it had more to do, like I said, from my understanding, that it was relative to the power lines and having to stay away from them.
But how does that affect the play on the field? Is there like the wind coming through that maybe for the right-handed hitters it's better?
So let me just say this, Brian, and then and then I'm curious to your opinion, because I don't know if we've ever really talked about it. I have this saying that Ozinga Field is where fly balls go to die. It's hard to hit home runs in our ballpark. It seems that it carries more to right field. The only thing I can come up with is that the upper deck does have something to do with the wind flow of the ballpark.
Oh,
Brian, you got anything on this?
It does travel better to right. I don't know if there's a reason to it. I don't know if you can't tell what the wind is doing because of the upper deck. So when balls go up, they look like standard fly balls, and then they're juiced out of the ballpark for some apparent reason. And then some days the ballpark plays like Ebbets Field. It's 700 feet all the way around. But if you look at the dimensions, it's just 330, and 390. It's a normal ballpark. And some days it plays so small, and others it plays so big. And guys call it the Thunderdome. And I let everybody know that, men can hit home runs out of the ballpark. If you can't hit home runs out of our ballpark, it's not a ballpark problem. It's a personal problem.
Oh, wow. Have you ever heard a player not going to your team because maybe he was afraid that he would maybe play on his stats?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Are
And
you
we know
serious?
guys, we know guys that go to certain ballparks because it is 291 down the right field line, and they do have 320 in the right center gap. And you see these guys that just shoot the ball to right field, right-handers that just go that way. They come home with 18 homers over the year. And if they were to play at Schaumburg or our ballpark, they would have 6.
That's
But
interesting.
it's a big deal. Sometimes stats are deceiving, but at the end of the day, they're being productive for their ball club. And there have been guys that have gotten picked up out of the league who've had great numbers that have played at tiny ballparks. And there have been guys who have had great numbers that haven't been picked up who play at tiny ballparks. There's no method behind these guys getting out of here because of their numbers. But man, there are some ballparks that you don't want to pitch at, and there are some ballparks that you do want to pitch at. And I know that's why, you know, we do tend to have a lot more arms get picked up off our ball club for sure. But it is a great place to pitch. And at the end of the day, it's never the ballpark's fault if you don't have a great offensive season.
Was the first thing that Jake Fisher told you when he came back was, I came back because of the stadium?
No. No, he didn't. Jake and I have a great relationship, and it was fun to talk to him about coming back. And I'm excited to have him back. I know he loves being in Chicago, and seeing him for the first time in what will be 6 years, I think. It'll be great to hand him the ball again and to go about our business like we did in 2013 when we first went at it.
We'll talk pitching in a few minutes, but I think I have a good question for you. Mike, the GM, was a groundskeeper before, and he was a pretty good groundskeeper too. He even won an award one year. I think it was at the beginning of the 2010, 2020. Anyway, does that affect the way you how could I say that? How you cut the grass? I mean, do you have a strategy about this? Do you talk about these things, or is that a stupid question of me?
Well, we've got artificial turf, so it's always the same.
Oh, are you serious? Oh my God.
Yes.
Do your homework, dude. Do your homework.
Yeah.
I think I did my homework, sir.
Well, no, and yeah, it's always the same length and it's always the same color. It's awesome. But no, in Dave's defense, we had grass up until the natural grass from up until 2015, and Mike Vershave as a GM is a bit of a renaissance man. I mean, he's done everything at this ballpark, and he's been here in one shape or form since 1999. And so he was the groundskeeper at one time before he became assistant GM. And so your question was not terribly off base, despite what my colleague might have just said. But yeah,
I'll get him back.
You know, yeah, I know you will. But it's we played 362 games, right? Last year. We wouldn't have been doing that on natural grass. The turf makes that possible. Mm-hmm. And I think Brian can speak better to this, and that is that even with artificial turf, different turf fields play differently. Our goal has always been to make it play as close to natural grass as possible. There were some things that were that came into the design of it. The warning track, for example, was designed so it wouldn't have those, super ball bounces on ground rule doubles. There was a ballpark in our league years ago where if you hit a ball 10 feet from the warning track, it was going to super ball out of the ballpark, and everything was a ground rule double. So, but I'm accurate, Brian, right, when I say that different turf fields could play much differently.
Yeah, and a lot of it does have to do with how they groom it. You just can't have a turf field and just let it be. Mm-hmm. You still have to take care of it, and you can see dry spots at certain places that play harder than others, and some fields have just got it refilled because it plays a little bouncier, and Bill's a psycho about everything on the field. He's technically the groundskeeper now,
That's right.
You gotta make sure it looks pretty every inning, every game, and it's a testament to how well the turf is held up. If you take care of it, you can have that stuff for a long time, look real good. And there are places that kind of neglect it, and they're running through pieces, and you can see like chopped up squares in certain areas of the ballpark that they just let go by. And after working at the ballpark all summer, unfortunately, I had to do some of the stuff that Bill does every day, and I hated every second of it. But it kept the mound up, it kept home plate up, all the base paths played right, just because I took 1 hour lesson with Bill on how to maintain everything before and after every one of these travel ball games for, what was it, 15 weeks, 12 weeks?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
A long time.
But my stupid question gave way to a good conversation, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I even read Terry Bonadona's book, and it mentions it mentions that in the book, so I just remember. And I wanted to talk to you about the book. Did he approach you about some of the things that he wrote in that? Did he just ask for your permission, or was it kind of on you the day it was published, and just read it and you'll know what I said about you?
Yeah, I knew he was writing a book, and he had talked about it for a long time. And when I found out it was finished, it came as a little bit of a surprise to me. I didn't know where he was at in the process. And a lot of guys talk about writing books, right? And nothing comes of it, But so it was. Yeah, I don't recall any conversation. Now, he might have had a conversation with Mike here and there. But I think Terry's been with us a long time. He's been with the organization longer than I have. So I'm sure there's some things he left out. But I think I found it to be a great book. And as I was reading it, and anybody who's interested in what a season in professional baseball is like, I think they would really enjoy the book. Which is on sale in our gift shop now, by the way, folks, if you care to come by and buy Terry's book. But it was just a really good insider's view, not only about being a broadcaster, which I think is interesting, but being on the bus, being around the clubhouse, being around the manager, and being around the season. He couldn't have picked a better season, I think, to write about, because there were a lot of ups and downs, and this is our 2017 season. And we were in it till the end. I won't give away what happens, but it really was a great season to read about, with ups and downs and some really crazy moments that make for really good reading. And he did a good job with it.
Yes, he did. I'm going back to you, Brian. You've got Jake Fisher back. Everybody's happy about this. I think he's going to anchor the rotation. Am I right? Yeah. And how does the rest of the rotation looks like? I think I've got it. Just tell me if that's it, okay?
Sure.
Tyler Thornton, Kenny Matthews, Neil Abatiello,
yeah.
And Stetson Woods. Does that make any sense?
Those guys are there.
Yeah.
We're gonna let these guys battle it out. Kenny Matthews, Big Country, Tyler Thornton, Fish. Those guys are locked in. They've proved enough to the league. They deserve every opportunity to lose that spot. And again, with expectations high, we're talking about a 22-month layoff for some of these guys. So you can't go in with the same expectations as you had in 2020. So kind of a clean slate for a lot of these guys, whether they were going to clean themselves up physically, get bigger, stronger, thinner, faster, whatever they had to do in the last 24 months. Some of them I fully expect took advantage of the time off. But we'll know where the truth lies in 2 weeks here, how these guys come into spring training and how they start chucking it. And again, it's going to be up to them. I know Cole Belair spent time in our starting rotation in 2019 after throwing 120 innings at his college and winning a NAI World Series with Tennessee Wesleyan. And he was exhausted, but he threw 60 plus innings for us. And that's 180 innings for a 21-year-old, and you don't see big leaguers throwing 190, 200 innings anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he was spot on from February until September. He pitched every 5 days that entire span. So I expect him to come in fresh, ready to roll. And he's still young in the eyes of baseball. But he's got a big year ahead of him that he needs to prove that he deserves to be an affiliated ball. And I'm excited to bring him back and trust that he's ready to roll as the season starts in the rotation. You brought up Neil. He had a great college career, pitched great in the Northwoods. His coaches just talked so highly of him. And again, how he spent his last 22 months is really gonna show when we get to camp. We have a couple other guys. Andrew Mitchell, we just signed. He was pitcher of the year in the conference that San Jose State is in. Struck out a ton of guys. He is an ultimate competitor. He's a guy whose goal after baseball is to become a Navy SEAL. And his life revolves around the BUDS training that he's going to start 16 months from now. So he is as laser focused as a human comes, and I wouldn't expect any less from a guy who is, at the level of wanting to become a Navy SEAL. And I am more than interested to see how he comes into camp, how he looks after being an 8th rounder in 2019 and not throwing an inning in affiliated ball. So we have a lot of potential coming in to join that rotation. And hopefully these guys, like I said, are ready to roll.
And there's Bobby Camitas,
yeah.
Which is intriguing to me because he was a starter, I think, for half of his outings in 2020 in the USBL. Is he a possibility for the rotation?
We're going to see how he plays out. He's had nothing but success at the back end of bullpens in college, when he was at St. Joe's, when he was at Creighton. We had him for, I think, like 3 days in 2019. He had to go off and play with the Israeli national team. So he was able to get some work in with us for a short period. We didn't see much of him, but, I tried getting him back in 2020. He was committed to the USBL.
Yeah.
And testament to him, he was committed to that. He didn't want to back out of his commitment. And it worked out that he wanted to come back home and play. And, he's from the south side of Chicago, so he's a local kid. And we love having some of those guys on the ball club because, again, they like writing about them in the paper, things like that. And it always brings a little bit of family fun back to the ballpark.
I could have said, do your research, man. It's the United Shore Baseball League, but I did not. I did it after.
Got a lot of names.
That's a
lot of names.
That's a joke. We are having fun. At the back end of the bullpen, you have Dylan Prohoroff and Colby Blueberg. Is that still the setting for you? Will they be sharing the saving duties in a way, or just coming in high leverage situation and that's it?
Yeah, we're gonna roll with Blue and with Pro at the back end, and we're bringing in Kyle Johnson, who a lot of guys may not know because of his injury background, but he started in center field at Purdue, and he played in the Joliet League this past summer. He was with the Yankees. He is a hard-throwing strike thrower, and a big boy. He is a physical man, and I met him once this offseason randomly, and I am excited to insert him in the back end with Blue and Prohoroff because those three guys are the epitome of strike-throwing, hard, confident back-end guys. And the more of those guys you can add to your staff, the better. And I'm not going to shy away from setting up Blueberg with Prohoroff or Prohoroff with Blueberg based on situation. They both had incredible success against left-handers, so it's not going to be a situation thing. It may be a how we feel type of thing. And if I can roll out a closer a night and not be the same guy going back to back, it's just going to give us more and more depth as the season goes on, because they're going to be fresh and they're going to be ready to roll as we get into hopefully a postseason hunt. But having Dylan back and bringing back Colby is very comforting for a manager to know that it shortens the game up. If we're rolling out thinking we only need to have our starter go 5 or 6 innings every night because the back end of the bullpen, you mentioned Stetson Woods, who told me he's ready to be a starter, back end, swing man, whatever we need. He's ready to roll. And again, guys that command the strike zone with more than one pitch, I can't emphasize that enough. And that's why guys like Bobby Comitas, who don't have the velocity like these guys, compete highly in the back end, because the stress, the pressure is on the hitters. It's not on the bullpen arms. And the commitment, the command, and the set of stones you have means a lot when you give the ball to a guy, and they should know, and if they don't, they will, that the pressure is on the hitter. It's more difficult to do that than it is to do what their job is. And that's where we're going to see the most success. But we get a lot of success out of the bullpen in 2019, and I'm excited to have, those 2 guys back at the back end, and these new guys filling in when needed. We're gonna have some fun when we turn over the game to the bullpen.
It's going to be a nightmare for the opposing teams, man. God,
that's what I'm looking for.
Well, we'll finish with Bill in a couple of seconds. I just want to talk about the offense a little. I think Rob Calabrese and Jamie Smart are pretty much the only people that are set in stone for the first base and the catcher position. The rest are going to just play around. Is that it?
Bryn Martinez had a great 2019 season. We picked him in the Frontier League draft with our second pick, I think. He played 95 games for us. He hit 280, stole 28 bags. And he's a fire starter, a switch hitting middle infielder who has the heart of a lion, everything you can talk about for a little guy. You can't count him out being at the top of the lineup. And, I say it all the time, if he is hitting at the top of our lineup, we're in good shape. If he is at the back end of our lineup, we are in very good shape, because he doesn't need any stress. He doesn't need any pressure on him. He's a kid without affiliated experience who's trying to make it to the next level, and we don't need to pile stress onto him. Guys like Calabrese and Smart showed they are on-base machines. They can drive runs in. So having those 2 guys in the middle of the lineup is going to be it's going to be reassuring. And we just signed Zach Rakusin out of this Canadian draft, who hit in the middle of the lineup with Lake Erie in 2019, and he goes a lot of ways offensively. He can run a little bit. He goes gap to gap. He's not a power hitter, but at the end of the day, we play at ballparks that are more gap to gap than anything else. And I'm excited to see how he implants himself into that lineup. And, Albie Weiss is coming from the Twins. He hit more than 10 homers with them in a season. He's got light tower power, and he has the flexibility to play in some first base, some outfield. He had, we had good talks in the off season about work he had done on his eyes to help with his overall comfort in the box. And he feels that things like that will improve his on-base percentage and his hard contact rate, which he is known for, hitting balls hard. And, the more guys we have getting on base, the more opportunities we're going to have to score runs. And that was the one thing in 2019 we lacked. We lacked the guy who was constantly on base. We didn't have a single guy who would be willing to take a walk. And I think the guys we brought in are the guys that are willing to do that now. So more base runners will give us more opportunities. And that's all I can ask for out of these guys.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that, man. It's a great explanation, by the way. Bill, I have 2 questions for you. And the first one, I don't even think you can answer, but I will ask you. The salary cap is $85,000. Is that it?
That is correct. Brian's the expert in that area.
Oh, it is you. Okay. I mean, not having baseball for 22 months, that you said, 22 months, it does cost a lot of money just to keep the operations running. Are you under any order not to go too close to the salary cap, or you have all the flexibility in the world?
No,
Well,
we've got.
Oh, sorry.
My bad. I was just going to point out we have a new owner this year. So Brian has spoken to him about that. I'll let that happen. But we have always operated under the premise that whatever the manager needs to make the team good,
Mhm.
whatever he feels, and if that's spending up to the top of the salary cap, then so be it. I'll let Brian take it from here.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the comforting part of having guys that have your back, is to know that, we have the flexibility to get to the 85 to the top. But you also have to be aware of things that happen during the season. Guys that become available, you can't just spend it all on your opening day roster. You have to expect things to happen that, expect the unexpected. And guys to make the team or have bad starts or have bad seasons that you got to adjust from, and surprise releases like a Dylan Prohorov that just become available all of a sudden. Those are the things you have to always keep in your back pocket. You can't just spend it all on day one. You kind of got to preserve some of it so that as the season rolls on, then you can fluctuate it a little bit and maneuver the cap.
And Brian, if I can jump in here, I think what's going to be really interesting this year, not only have we not, some of these guys, we don't know what they've been doing for the last 22 months, and what's it going to be like for them coming back to baseball if they haven't played a typical season in 2020. But the other thing is that come draft time, there's less rounds in the draft this year. And so I think that the whole dynamic of, between what are players going to look like when they get here, and the fact that, there already are something like 1,000 less jobs in professional baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we're going to add the fact that the draft is 20 rounds less or more than what it was. I mean, there's a lot of talent that's going to be out there. And it's going to be a very strange off season, in season, I think, for everybody, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a race, and that's the exciting and unquestionable spot we're all going to be in. Is we're all going to have to get better at some point during the season and make moves that we didn't expect, and that may hurt some feelings, break some hearts, upset some of the cliques in the clubhouse. But we have to get better day in and day out. And there may be that player, like Bill said, who goes undrafted or during the draft gets released because of the draft.
Right.
And we're going to have to make those adjustments, and we have to make sure we have the resources to get that guy in, because again, we're all fighting. And if a few $100 is going to sway a guy from one club to the other, you have to make sure you can at least compete to bring in the best players you can, who are quality humans, great ball players, guys that you're proud to present to your neighborhood as Thunderbolts.
Wow. I had no idea how the question would go over, but I appreciate the openness, and I wanted to tell you that, guys. Thank you very much. And the last question is for Bill. Right now, baseball is important to me. It's very, very important. It's important to you, obviously. But you're competing with a lot of entertainment in today's very busy lives for everybody. What's your pitch right now to the companies, to the ticket holders, to the season ticket holders that were there in the past, or even the new fans that you're trying to bring to the stadium? Is it difficult? And what's your strategy right now?
It is difficult, and it's difficult in Chicago because we compete with, as you know, everything from amusement parks to movie theaters to anything that somebody would do with their discretionary cash, right? So it's very competitive in a major metropolitan area, whereas some teams that are in smaller towns where they're the thing, they're the entertainment of that town. We kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit sometimes. So our mantra for this year has been 2020 run the return of fun. And we want people to realize we are back, and there's fun to be had at the ballpark. People are, we hear it, and we're making calls to our people who have brought out groups. That's our major thing that's going on right now every day. And it's very encouraging to hear on the other end of that phone that people are saying, we miss being out at the ballpark. We can't wait to get out to the ballpark. So, we're always an affordable option. I think, throughout the league, you'll see teams, and that's true with them as well. We are a very affordable option within the community. We're a safe family place, and you can't beat fun at the old ballpark. So this is the place to be in the summer for sure.
That's awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, I've been talking to pretty much every team, but not always by video conference, and I'm trying to reach out to everybody. Everybody's so open, and they want to talk baseball, and I really want you to know that I appreciate your time. I know you have other things to do, but I truly do appreciate that. So let's keep in touch during the season, guys.
Absolutely. And thanks for the opportunity. We love that you're so invested in the Frontier League, and
I'm crazy.
So are we.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real here.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
You have to be a little nutty to work in this business, but we do appreciate your enthusiasm for the league and what you're doing to promote the league. And we look forward to talking to you down the road. And if you're ever in the neighborhood, we've got a couple of tickets waiting for you.
Let me tell you that if the border is open, I will be there this summer.
Yeah, I forgot a very important part of that equation.
Why don't we get an address and get you a new pennant behind you?
You know what? If you send it, I will put it there for the next interview, for the next video with the team that you choose.
I will email you, and you can send me your address. How's that?
Are you serious?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
This could be fun with the other teams too. Okay, so Brian, just choose the other team. I'll let you sometime and just
and put it in the back.
Which one?
No, then you can be like, "Hi, Andy McCauley," and you have Thunderbolts in the background.
I will do it. I promise you, I will do it if you send it.
That would be good.
That's a deal?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Have a great day, guys. That was fun.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. Bye-bye now.